Attention all burger enthusiasts and game aficionados. Celebrate a century of excellence at Mott's Lounge. Proudly serving the community for 100 years under 5 generations of passionate ownership. Sink your teeth into our hand-pressed fresh burgers bursting with flavor, crafted just the way you like them. And while you're here, enjoy our exclusive drink specials, perfect for toasting to our milestone anniversary. Plus, challenge your luck with our state-of-the-art gaming machines, adding an extra thrill to your visit. Join us at Mott's Lounge and be a part of history in the making. Here's to another century of great food, fun, and memories. Mott's Lounge, where every visit is a celebration. For more information, visit us online at mottslounge.com. It's 8:06. It's the first shift. It is a beautiful Tuesday morning here in downtown Elgin, and it is that time of the year where we want to embrace these warm days as long as we can. You know, it's only a matter of time, but fall's a nice time of the year around here too. And we just started up a new YouTube feed at WRMN Radio on YouTube this morning. Wanted to have a YouTube feed of its own for our special guest who is here this morning. Kane County State's Attorney Jamie Mosser joins us, and it's been a while. Jamie, thanks for joining us this morning on the show.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I think the last time maybe you were here was with Chief Anna Lally.
It was, yes.
Yeah. So, and that, gosh, time flies. So I bet that's been about 2 years
It has
or
been.
so.
Way too long.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Good, good.
Yeah. Jamie Mosser is State's Attorney for Kane County, position she has held since December of 2020. Elected as Democrat, focusing on criminal justice reform, community safety, and victim advocacy throughout her tenure. Her administration has been notable for its emphasis on transparency, accountability, and ensuring that the justice system serves all community members fairly. Is that true, Jamie?
Yes, that's what I believe that I've done for the last 4 years and what I'm going to do in another 4 years when reelected.
Yeah. Well, why don't you, when you first came in this morning, I didn't realize it, but I started here back in 2016, and I guess at that time you were still walking and working right across the street from this radio station, right?
I was, yes. I was in private. When I left the state's attorney's office the first time was 2015. I opened up a private practice with my law partner, Kim Klein, and our offices were right across the street.
Nice. So I saw you and didn't even know you at the time.
Exactly. I would watch from across the street the radio program, so that was interesting.
Yeah. Well, so why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to the audience that might not be familiar with who Jamie Mosser is?
Perfect, thank you. So I was born and raised in DuPage County, lived there pretty much my entire life until I went to college, Illinois State University, where I majored in political science and minored in philosophy, and then had no skills whatsoever to do anything in real world life. So I went to law school. I've always wanted to be a lawyer, and I always wanted to be a prosecutor. Went to DePaul, graduated, moved to New Orleans, where I lived for 2 years, and I was an assistant district attorney, which is the exact same thing as an assistant state's attorney. We're just prosecutors. Okay. Down there, I was mostly in juvenile court. Absolutely loved the entire experience. Had 2 murder cases as a brand new attorney down there, which is terrifying, but it goes to show you the crime rate. Moved back here, applied to every prosecutor's office within a 50-mile radius, and got the job as an assistant state's attorney in Kane County, where I was for the next 10 years.
And so in 2020, you were elected to become Kane County State's Attorney.
Yes.
Which is what you are now, and the term is up, right? So another term you're hoping for?
I am.
And that's in November you're running.
Correct. November 5th is Election Day, and I'm working really hard to make sure that people know who I am, what I've done for the last 4 years, and what I plan to do when I'm reelected.
What is the main focus of the Kane County State's Attorney? I mean, I know you're super busy. There's lots of things that come across your desk, let's say, every day. What do you do on a daily basis? What's your regular job, or does it encompass so many different things?
It's so many different things. So primarily, I wear 2 different hats. What people know about me is the criminal portion of it. So from a traffic ticket all the way up to a homicide cases, That's what we do, and that's what people know. The other hat that I wear is I'm the attorney for the county. So if any elected official that's a Kane County elected official is sued, if something happens where our property is damaged, things from FOIA, election law, I'm the lawyer that represents the county for that. And that by far and away takes up more of my time than anything else.
As you look back at your first 4 years, anytime you're in office, I think, for the first time, even though you might be familiar with the office you're taking or the job you're supposed to be doing, you learn a lot of things that maybe were unexpected. You take on a lot of experiences that you didn't know were coming. If you look back at your first 4 years, what would you say some of your most significant achievements might be? Or let's just start with that. Maybe some of the most significant achievements.
Well, so one of the things that I wanted to do was really to be employee focused. There are so many people who work so hard every day, and their quality of work-life home balance wasn't great. So first of all, they weren't paid anywhere near what they should be paid. And the caseloads for the attorneys and the support staff and our advocates was just out of control. So I worked really hard in my first 3 years to make sure that we increased the amount of people who work for the state's attorney's office and we increased their pay. And I was able to do that last year where we got significant pay parity raises for every single person within my office. And that meant people could quit their second job because now they could actually afford to work this one job and still pay for their rent or their mortgage or their kids and their car. So to me, that was one of the greatest accomplishments that I had, was really focusing on their needs.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly a good thing. I'm sure they appreciate you for that.
They did.
Yeah. So have there been, it's been a crazy 4 years based on all the things that have been going on.
Yes.
Over there. And when you first started, COVID was first starting, I imagine, right? So
I was in the tail end. So State's Attorney McMahon is the one that really had to deal with the COVID issue and how to run an office and courthouse. So he did a great job just setting me up for being able to take over for that.
Yeah. So what would you say maybe are some of the surprises, some of the things that that have given you a lot of anxiety or stressed you out over the past 3 or 4 years because you didn't know it was coming and it's been tough to deal with?
Legislation. So the Safety Act was one of the worst things that I had to deal with since being in office. And so the problem with that was that came out in 2021, early of 21, and it was in the lame duck session. I was excited for the thought of it because it was supposed to be about criminal justice reform, which is one of the things that I ran on. I sat down, I read the 611 pages, and then I penned a letter in opposition to the Safety Act. And so that's what actually got me to the table to advocate for and help to write the changes in the law that we saw over these last 3 years.
So as the Safety Act was being introduced then, were you actually supportive of it at the time, right? Or how do you feel about the Safety Act in general?
So the Safety Act itself has some great ideas. It was very poorly written, and that's part of what I advocated for change. So the Safety Act came out in 3 different parts. It dealt with police officer reform, it dealt with changing a lot of our laws, and then the big one that just happened this past year was the Pretrial Fairness Act, which eliminated the use of cash bail.
Yeah.
Now, I'm in favor of the elimination of it, and that's because people cannot pay to get out of jail. So we had dangerous offenders that had access to money, and it didn't matter what we set for the bond, they got out. That's not the way our system should be. Conversely to that, we had people who couldn't pay to like $100 to get out because they committed a petty offense or a retail theft, something that was a smaller offense. The way that the law worked in New Jersey, which is what we should have modeled our system after, actually reduced crime and reduced recidivism because the people that were a danger stayed in jail. However, we wrote our system based on New York, which had certain detainable offenses, and that's what I objected to, because we should be able to hold any person who's a danger, not just because they're listed as having a certain criminal act.
And as far as people that are dangers, I mean, that's such a gray area, isn't it? I mean, how does that put a lot of judgment in your court, where you have to make the decision whether you think someone is a danger to be let back out or needs to be kept in until their court proceedings are over with? That's got to be really, and aren't there like direct offenses that keep you in, that lets you out where it doesn't become such a judgment call? How does all that work for you?
So right now, the way our law is written, we have 10 different categories of offenses that could be held if we, the state's attorney's office, can prove by clear and convincing evidence they're a danger. I think it's relatively easy for us to be able to say that because we look at the crime itself, the facts of what happened, and this is based on the investigation by our fantastic officers in Kane County, where they write up a synopsis of what happened. But then we can also look at the criminal history that the person has, whether or not they failed to appear before, if when they were out, they committed additional crimes while they were on bond when we had bond, or now, if they're released, if they're continuing to commit offenses. So to me, I think it's an easy way to be able to see it and to prove it to a judge that a person should be held.
So there are 10 different offenses that kind of lie in that gray area then, that you have a lot of say as to whether they get out or not?
Correct. 10 different categories of offenses, yes. So because within
Okay.
each, like we have our violent offenses, we have domestic violence, we have sexual violence offenses. So you have all of these different categories that then a bunch of our statutes fall under.
So do you feel like, based on that, based on the fact that before some of those offenders in those categories would have been able to get out, they would have just had to pay a bail or a bond to get out, right?
Correct, yes.
Now, if you decide that they're not a threat, they get out without having to post bail.
Correct.
And that's got to be scary. Mm-hmm. It's got to be scary because there's got to be those times where you're on the fence a little bit, probably, right? You're not sure.
Right.
And so you just got to use your best judgment to make a decision. And then, it gives you anxiety because you hope that you made the right decision if the decision was to let them go, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's a lot of what we always look at. In domestic violence situations, we know that this is something that's a pattern. It's a cycle. And when we have a first-time offender who's battered their spouse, significant other, whomever it is, and you have to make the decision whether or not to let that person go, even with guidelines that say you can't go back to the house, you can't talk to that individual. It's scary because you never know if that person is going to escalate it to something worse.
Yeah. Well, if you have any questions for our Kane County State's Attorney this morning, we have Jamie Mosser here. We have open phone lines. We'll take a few phone calls while she's here. 847-931-1410. That's 847-931-1410. We're also on YouTube at WRMN Radio on YouTube if you want to join us that way. And we have the Image 360 information line if you're driving around this morning. Don't text while you're driving.
Yes, please don't do that.
Yeah, I had to make sure I said that since Jamie's here. Well, anytime, right? Anytime. But the number to call or text is 505-926-1410. That's 505-926-1410. So have you found that with these judgment calls that you now find yourself having to make, because it was more cut and dried before, right? It was totally cut and dried.
Very much so, because on any person that went before the court, it would be the court's decision to set a bond or not set a bond. We would make recommendations, but ultimately it was the judge's decision. Now it's our decision. If they're a detainable person, we file the petition. We have all the proof, so we have to bring that to the judge. Now, ultimately, they make the decision as to whether or not we met our burden, but it does put a lot more burden on the prosecutors who are in the courtrooms.
Yeah. So I always thought, as I saw this thing unfolding, and I'm just a talking head, but to try to put myself in a judge's position or in your position or whatever, that with no bond determining or no amount of money determining whether someone gets out or not, whether it's all or nothing, basically, that I would err on the side of caution. If I was not sure, then I would lean towards saying no. I mean, I'm not sure. Not sure means you need to stay until your court proceedings are finished with. Is that a fair statement?
It is. I mean, ethically, I have to ask for a court to do something based on evidence. And if I don't believe that I can meet the standard of clear and convincing evidence, I can't file a petition. But we do err on asking for more people to be held than less people because we believe we have the proof. Because again, it's being brought to us by our police officers who do an investigation. Then we have standards that we look at, and there are factors that are in there. Has this happened before? Do we think that there was a weapon involved? Was there a further threat that was made? For the most part, we can meet the burden on these cases just based on what is brought to us by our officers.
Yeah. Well, so have you been trying to track I mean, I'm sure you have. That's
We
a
do.
dumb question. But as you've been tracking, whether you feel like the decisions have been a success or not, how do you feel it's going so far as like those judgment, for lack of a better word, judgment calls that you have to make? And as you track them, are you seeing you got to even be more cautious, or it's working out kind of the way you hoped it would, or how?
So we do track it. We have a dashboard actually that's on our Kane County Court website that shows how many petitions are filed, whether those petitions are granted or not. And so we watch that. Of the petitions that we're putting up, we're probably getting granted more than half of what we're asking to be detained by the judges. In terms of people who are committing other offenses, if they're being released, we're seeing less people who are detainable offenses that are released committing more offenses. It's those individuals that cannot be detained because they're not a detainable offense that we're actually seeing the criminal behavior continue. And that's what I continue to work with our legislators on, because we need to expand the list of what we can ask to be detained, because it's just not sufficient right now.
Yeah. So where there's no judgment involved, where it's a non-detainable offense, where these people are getting out cashless bail, that's where we are seeing the recidivism.
We are. And so that's mostly, if you think about it, our criminal trespass cases. And it happens a lot in front of our businesses. So there's a person, they're homeless, they don't have anywhere to stay, they're going and they're sleeping in front of, or they're outside of a place, or they're going into a business. Officers are coming, and right now it is a cite and release. So officers have to say, here's your ticket, please leave. They're not able to arrest them unless there are other certain factors. If the person continues or persists in the behavior, then the officers can arrest them. And that's one of the things that we, as in my office, suggested and wrote into the law to make sure that our officers have the ability to actually remove somebody from a business to keep our community as safe. But they have to be released from the police station. So what are they going to do? They're going to go right back to where they were before.
Right. And they're going to be released without, there is no bond. There's no bail. I mean, I don't even know why I keep saying that. I mean, they're going to be, so it's just going to repeat itself. So it's like there's no answer to that. What is the answer to that?
Well, the answer is that our legislature has to change this law, and we're working with them. So myself and other state's attorneys, including State's Attorney Bob Berlin, he's in DuPage County, we work together to draft different pieces of legislation. We bring it to our legislators with the hope that in the sessions they'll adopt some of these as trailer bills, and then it will actually fix it. And we're doing this with our actual cases. So we have in Kane County an unlawful restraint case. So this is a class 4 felony. So this is the lowest of all of our felonies. It would happen in a McDonald's. A McDonald's employee went into the bathroom. A customer who had some mental health issues followed her in there and started to demand her money back. Now, obviously, the employee didn't take her money. So then the person started to pat her down. The employee started to scream. Another customer came in to help her. That defendant was charged with unlawful restraint and battery. So that's a class 4 and a class A. I couldn't even ask to have that person held based on the law because a class 4 felony is a non-detainable offense. And that's frustrating because that woman was terrified as a result of what happened to it. Mm-hmm. So we go back with these examples to say this has to be added because of this reason. This needs to be changed because of these cases. Here are all of our statistics to show that the recidivism, the committing more crimes while out, are happening on these lower level offenses and not on the higher ones because we're able to detain those individuals.
And then if those individuals are detained, they can't, well, here I go with the bond thing again.
Yeah, they cannot do anything. They're just in. Now,
they're going to be in until their court cases are resolved.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then at least they have to spend some time not being able to go right back to the same spot.
Exactly. And we in Kane County, because of our Sheriff Ron Hain, have a robust treatment program within the jail. So I'm not talking about the violent offenders. I'm talking about the people who are in because they have addiction issues or mental health issues. We're actually helping them in the jail so that when they do get out, because we know this, everybody's going to get out at some point. So they may be an inmate today, tomorrow they're your neighbor. We're actually helping them so that when they're out, they're less likely to commit other crimes.
Yeah. It's 8:25 here at WRMN. We're joined by Jamie Mosser. She's She's the Kane County State's Attorney, and she's going for 4 more years, and she's here to talk to us today about what she's been facing, what she would like to do in the next 4 years, and things of that nature, some of the issues that are going on. Got about 4 minutes until the bottom of the hour break here. Jamie, I guess we have a couple of minutes to get into something else. Anything else you want to say about the Safety Act before we move on?
Oh, so much. I mean, I have many presentations about how we need to fix it. And so, I mean,
we can finish this half hour with that if you want to.
Perfect. Yeah. Part of it is it put an incredible burden on the counties and the cities because it was an unfunded mandate. And so we've been working really hard to do that. So I actually had to go back to my county board to ask for more funding because we had to hire more people, attorneys, advocates, and support staff just to be able to deal with the pretrial fairness portion of it. Our officers obviously have to deal with the fact that they were mandated to have body cameras. And I know Elgin was well ahead of the game in terms of that anyway, so they were ready to deal with that. Recently, I went down to Springfield to actually advocate for money for our Kane County judicial system to continue to deal with this because right now we're in a budget crisis. And I'm lucky because of Senator Linda Holmes, who is one of our more southern Kane County senators, she actually gave a grant award to my office of $1 million to kind of help deal with the fact that we had this unfunded mandate so that we're taking less burden on our Kane County residents and really we're trying to help out with the funding portion of it. So that's another thing that was incredibly frustrating that I had to implement all of these changes, but I was not given the adequate resources to do so.
Yeah. Okay. 827 here at WRMN. We're talking about public safety and crime and the Safety Act a little bit. And we're talking with Jamie Mosser. And so that's been one major thing that's been talked about in the news a lot over the past couple of years. And people feared that we're going to see a lot of change as a result of people not having any cash bail anymore. One other thing we've seen a lot over the past couple of years has been the appearance of many thousands of asylum seekers to the area. How has that affected your office? Asylum seekers that are coming here and trying to find a place to seek asylum. Has it affected Kane County a lot in your mind? Has it affected your job a lot?
In Kane County, yes, because obviously these are individuals who are coming that we need to try to find help for. It's put a burden on our community, again, because we weren't given any funding to assist with this. We did see a smaller rise in criminal behavior, especially in terms of retail theft cases, because the individuals who were being dropped off here were being dropped off with nothing. And so what do you do? But you go to a place to obviously, find clothing, find food, do something of that nature. And so we have seen that rise in terms of the cases that we had. Other than that, from my office, it hasn't really had much of an impact at all because that is more dealt with at the state level, not at the county level.
Yeah, so that's the main, if there has been a criminal spike as a result of these asylum seekers, you think it's been mainly in, like, retail theft?
Yes, I do.
Not violent crimes for the most part?
Not that we've seen. In terms of the statistics that we're starting to generate this year, we've only seen more of the property level type crimes and not violent crimes.
So let's see. How has this affected your office's operations and resources? I guess you kind of just went over that a little bit, right? Not too terribly much?
No, and so I'm constantly looking at the statistics because if I do see a spike in a certain amount of crime, I either have to shift individuals to help deal with that, or I have to go to the county board to say that we need additional individuals. And so as I see that, I will address the board. I will show the statistics, the different types of cases that we have. And as a result of the asylum seekers, I haven't had to go to the board to really change anything in terms of how we're dealing with our crimes.
Okay. About halfway through with Kane County State's Attorney Jamie Mosser, and we have about 25 minutes left when we come back from this break. We're going to catch up on some news right now. Want to be a part of the conversation? 847-931-1410. YouTube, WRMN Radio on YouTube, or by texting in at 505-926-1410. If you have a question you want to ask her, now's the time. It's the first shift, and it's a beautiful Tuesday on WRMN AM 1410 and WRMN Radio on YouTube. We'll be right back after we check the bottom of the hour news.
With your 1410 WRMN News Flash, I'm Sean Kernan, brought to you by the U.S. Postal Service. In an effort to address the educational needs of Americans without a four-year college degree, Illinois is receiving an $8 million boost from the Apprenticeships Build America grants. The funding is part of a $244 million initiative by the U.S. Department of Labor. 57-year-old David R. Glass, facing severe legal repercussions after being charged with multiple felonies related to child pornography, the McHenry County Sheriff's Office, in collaboration with the Illinois Attorney General's Office, charging Glass with 10 counts of reproducing or selling child pornography and 10 counts of possession. Elgin is set to commemorate Patriot Day with a solemn remembrance ceremony September 11th at the Hemmons Cultural Center. The event is scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. when will feature the Elgin Fire Department, Elgin Police Department, and honored guests presenting flags. Participants will be treated to a rendition of the national anthem by Larkin High School students, heartfelt remarks from city officials, and representatives of the American Legion Post 57. With your 1410 WRMN News Flash, I'm Sean Kernan.
What's better than one win? 3 wins. With Straight Savings, you keep your own phone, get one line for only $25 a month with real unlimited data, and get rewarded with a $200 phone credit after 12 months. It's a win-win-win. Head to Walmart or visit straighttalk.com today. Switch to Straight Talk. Less dollars, more sense. Straight Savings Plan enrollment requires compatible unlocked device and new line of service. Bonus device credit requires 12 months of active service. Offer ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. Taxes and fees apply. For network management practices, see Straight Talk's terms and conditions.
Progressive presents Renter's MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Tom Kelly's carbon fiber mountain bike. Because more than riding his carbon fiber mountain bike, Tom loves telling people about his carbon fiber mountain bike. Friends, family, even a local barista knows about his carbon fiber mountain bike. And that's why Tom's carbon fiber mountain bike, if you haven't heard about it, is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
Progressive presents the Sports Flash on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN. Cubs pounded the Dodgers 10-4 at Dodger Stadium. Chicago took a 3-0 lead out of the first. Michael Busch 4 for 5 with a homer. He scored 3 runs. Cody Bellinger had 3 RBI, including a 2-run homer. The Cubs offense broke out for 16 hits. Every player got at least 1. The Cubs look to extend a 2-game winning streak tonight when the series continues. Chicago 5 games out of a National League wild card spot.
High and deep to center. Back on it is Robert. This one's gone. Home run, Bo Naylor.
Guardians radio 5-3 the win over the White Sox. Loss number 112 for the Sox, who suffered their franchise record 13th consecutive home loss and 15th in their last 17 games overall. The Sox approaching the Major League modern record for most losses in a season that was set by the Mets in 1962 with 120.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive.
I'm Chuck Sanders on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN.
Everybody. Great job. Next up for our 5th grade class recital, we have Samantha.
10 times better performance can make a big difference. Castrol Edge Motor Oil gives your engine 10 times better high-stress performance. Castrol Edge, better oil for maximum performance. Now through December 28th, Castrol Edge and Edge High Mileage Motor Oil are on rollback at Walmart.
Claim based on sequence 9 test under high-load conditions versus API-SP test limits.
Progressive presents Renter's MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Joe Fallon's bedroom mini fridge. Sure, this pint-sized chiller's max capacity is 3 soda cans, but what it lacks in stature, it makes up in cooling strength. Each beverage a perfect 37 degrees every time. And the 2 feet Joe walks to get a drink, priceless. That's why his mini fridge is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
As grocery prices rise, take your family out to any of the Tommy's Red Hots location for great food at unbelievably low prices. There's 6 locations to serve you for both dine-in or carry-out. Tommy's has a diverse, delicious menu for you and your family, with crispy pizzas, sandwiches, salads, and their famous hot dogs, plus so much more. Don't forget their scrumptious sides like mac and cheese bites. To see their menu and locations, visit Tommy'sRedHots.com today.
WRMN says thank you to all of our local veterans, like Jerry Christofferson of True Patriots Care.
We had the 1,700 flags up across from the wall. That's how many POWs and MIAs from Vietnam are still missing. Plus, we do veterans and first responders funerals.
Yeah.
And so if you ever drive by a funeral home or a church or a cemetery and you see the flags, you know a soldier died today.
Go to TruePatriotsCare.com for more information. And veterans, thank you for your service to our country.
In the middle of the night, everything will be all right if you listen to Coast, right here on WRMN 7 days a week from midnight to 5 a.m. Each night on Coast to Coast, listeners are captivated by George Newry with discussions on news and current events, conspiracy theories, UFOs, life after death, and all things curious and unexplained. Whether you're working third shift or you're just a night owl, catch the most listened to overnight talk radio program in North America, Coast to Coast, every night, midnight to 5 a.m. right here on WRMN AM 1410 and 96.7 FM.
The word is out. Nissans cost less on Route 19, but that's not all. Parts, service, and body shop, they all cost less at McGrath Nissan. Used cars too. The reason why is how hard we try. Right now, get 0% APR financing on select new Nissan models at McGrath Nissan because
Nissans cost less on Route 19.
Come to Elgin.
See what we mean.
It's 8:36. It's a Tuesday morning, and we are back. It's the first shift. My name is Mark, and I'm joined by Jamie Mosser, who's the Kane County State's Attorney, for about 22 more minutes here on the program. So if you want to be a part of it, feel free to give us a call at 847-931-1410 and ask a question or discuss an issue with our current Kane County State's Attorney. Running for 4 more years. So I guess thinking that we're going to get into a few issues here in the next few minutes, Jamie. Let me just ask you right off the bat here, I guess. On the future and re-election, looking ahead to a potential second term, what would you say your priorities, goals are, maybe things you learned from term number 1, and where are we going from here? Why is Jamie Mosser going to take us to the next level in the next 4 years?
So over the last 4 years, what I've really tried to do is to create programming in Kane County that was going to deal with our low risk, medium risk, and high risk individuals. So I expanded all of our deferred prosecution programs to deal with the low risk individuals, because if you can deal with them adequately and in the right way, they're less likely to come into the system. Our moderate risk individuals, I created Illinois' only pre-arrest diversion program. And so these are the people who have gone through the system, but the system hasn't helped them because they just need more resources. And we're primarily grant funded for that program, so it's not a burden on the taxpayers. But again, it's how our people, our case managers, go and help an individual. So if you're trespassing because you don't have a home, we help them with a harm reduction-based approach, which says, okay, you cannot be in front of this business. Where can we get you to be so that you're stable, but you're not affecting our citizens? You're using drugs. How can we get you into treatment in an effective way? And that program has been shown to statistically help 58% more people stay out of the criminal justice system than going through the regular criminal justice system alone. And then for our high-risk individuals, we now have in Illinois 4 specialty courts, and because we just created our DUI rehabilitative court, which again is going to help those people who commit multiple DUI offenses actually get to treatment and stay out of a car, because those are the people more likely to kill a family because they're driving drunk home. And so what I'm going to do next is work with our judicial system to create more specialized courts that help with these DUI offenders and our domestic violence offenders, because those are statistically the highest amount of cases that we have in our court system.
What would you say to voters who are undecided right now? Maybe they didn't vote for you last time. Maybe they didn't vote last time. Maybe they're new to Kane County. Maybe this is the first time they've ever heard you before. They're undecided about your reelection. They're considering your opponent, maybe Drew Sosnowski. Why should they choose you over your opponent?
So the last 4 years, all that I've done is I've worked for this county, and the proof is what I've done. We have been able to bring in this innovative program. We've been able to increase our public safety. We've been able to do things that other counties cannot do because I am so proactive with trying to find the resources to help people. But conversely, I'm also that person that realizes that when you create a problem in Kane County and you are a danger, I'm going to advocate for prison. Kane County now has a child exploitation unit because of my efforts. all that we do is we focus on the people who are creating, disseminating, possessing child pornography. Because what we found out is that here in Elgin, we have investigators that can run down those cases. Aurora can run down those cases. All of the other police departments could not, because the resources necessary to be able to track down and find these child pornographers is huge. So what I did is I went to the county board, because a retired officer came and showed me the statistics, because all of our providers, Google, Yahoo, Snapchat, if they see suspected child pornography, they turn it over to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, who then give it to our Internet Crimes Against Children task force, who then funnel it down to our individual police departments. I found out that the most downloaded child pornography was happening in St. Charles, not Elgin and Aurora, in St. Charles. But we weren't going after those individuals because the police department didn't have the resources, not that they didn't want to. So now it's my investigators and the investigators at the sheriff's department and our forensic analysts who are actually going after these individuals, and we are getting teachers, PTO presidents, people who work at daycares, CEOs, people who are in our community, and we just don't realize that they are the predators. And I'm extremely proud of what we've been able to do to get some significant prison sentences for these individuals who before were just not being investigated.
I have to say, I'm seeing more and more stories about people being busted for child porn charges. That's for sure. I don't know why, but it made my mind think of transparency a little bit too, and the fact that something that we talk about on this show a lot, the fact that how transparent should local police departments, the Kane County Sheriff's Office, the State's Attorney's Office, whatever the case may be about the things that are going on behind the scenes? Because, and it's not your fault, it's not the police department's fault, but quite honestly, media has changed so much, and the local reporters from newspapers, from radio stations, there are not as many. And so they're not digging as deep as they used to dig. And so a lot of stuff, quite honestly, can stay hidden unless the actual law enforcement agency or sheriff's office or whatever releases the information themselves. It kind of puts you in a little bit more of a power position in a way, because you've almost become your own reporter to a certain degree. So how important is it for you to be your own reporter then, and to put as much information out there, bad or good, as you get it?
I think it's extremely important, because otherwise people don't know what we're doing. I love being able to tell people what we do. We send out press releases. We have Facebook Live events that we do. I go out in the community. I absolutely love, and we were talking about this before, how many people are now getting active in Kane County government and coming to our meetings. I can't even tell you how many times I've gotten voicemail messages left for me, letters sent to me that I actually call the people back, because they will hear a snippet of something. They're thinking I'm not doing something, so they send it to me, and then I call and I talk to them about it. I can't even tell you how many people are just surprised. They're like, well, we didn't think you would call back. That's my job.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. 847-931-1410 is the number to call. We do have one call coming in right now. You're welcome to call and talk to the state's attorney, Jamie Mosser, for about 15 minutes. She's going to be here, and she's open game for everything. So let's take a call right here. Good morning. Welcome to the First Shift.
Hey, good morning, Marky B, and good morning, Miss Mosser.
Good morning.
I appreciate, the programs that you've been discussing, and I'm kind of concerned about. I'm trying to understand a little bit more about the Safety Act. Okay, and you just went through and discussed, low risk crimes, medium risk, high risk. Okay, and look, all you have to do is see what's going on in places like San Francisco, where they've introduced laws there where they aren't prosecuting lower risk like shoplifting and things like that. Well, before you know it, half the stores in San Francisco are closing. Now, we're in an environment now, and due to, politics and economics at the national level, we're now dealing with a lot of inflation and a lot of problems where retailers are closing their stores. I just read about Big Lots is going to close a bunch of stores. Bed Bath & Beyond closed right in, on Randall Road there. And so, what about the risk to the people that work in these stores? Their jobs are being put at risk because you are not, prosecuting and enforcing the law in terms of shoplifting. What do you have to say about that?
Well, so the first thing, and this is a really good point, I want you to know I am prosecuting those cases. I do know that Cook County, for the longest time, made their decision that instead of the $300 limit for a felony, they were going to wait till it was $1,000, or a person had a certain amount of convictions. I've never taken that policy. We prosecute, but we prosecute in different ways. When a person is arrested and it's a lower risk person, they go through a deferred prosecution program, which means they're on a contract. They have to do certain things, including restitution, sometimes classes, sometimes community service. But they're earning their way out of a conviction through our system, and if they don't do it, then they get a conviction. These moderate risk individuals where we have a pre-arrest aversion, that's partnering with police officers, where a police officer believes that they need something different. Not an arrest, they just need certain help. We work with our businesses too, because a business has to agree for that to happen, because I'm not going to take that choice away from them. If they want us to go through a traditional prosecution, we will do that. It's just a different way to try to find what the needs of the individual, what their needs are, so that we can get them out of our system. I do not and will never have a policy that says I will not prosecute a certain type of case because everything is different. Because if we don't prosecute cases, then we're just letting our businesses suffer as a result of that, and I will never take that position.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, Ms. Foster. Let's talk about a high-risk crime. I just want you to clarify the facts, because I may not have the facts and our audience may not. I understand that there was a young man in the Campton Hills area that apparently beat his mother to death. I may have the facts wrong. And I understand he's now out on parole, and he may have only been in for 4 years, or maybe he didn't get any jail time at all. Can you speak to a high-risk crime like that? And I believe it was during your time in office.
Sure.
Can you explain those facts a little bit better?
Absolutely.
What happened there?
So when I talk about low, medium, or high risk, that's their risk to reoffend. That takes into consideration the crime charged. But when I'm talking about those programming, I'm not talking about somebody who commits a homicide offense. That's treated completely differently. And so I have heard the criticism about this particular case, and the homicide itself happened in the former state's attorney's term, but the resolution of the case was done by me personally. So this is what happened with that case. I want to say kid, but he was in his early 20s, so he's not a kid. But he had gone off to spring break. He was abroad. He was gone for about a week and a half, came back. He was very jet lagged. He had a great relationship with his parents. So he had his mother and his father, and he had a brother. His mother picked him up. She was super excited to see him. I saw all the text messages. It was the sweetest thing. He came home. He had a couple hours of a nap. His mom woke him up because she had made this huge dinner for him because she was so excited he was back. They had a couple of drinks during that, and then he went off to a friend's house where he drank and also smoked marijuana. He knew that he couldn't drive, so he actually Ubered back to his house. When he was back at his house, his parents were out by a fire. They drank some more, and they drank in excess. They all went to bed at like 3 o'clock in the morning. So now I have an individual who is sleep deprived. He's had alcohol, and he has cannabis in his system. Now, all of this is voluntary. This is voluntary intoxication. So they all go to sleep when we know this based on the evidence that we have. And around 7 o'clock that morning, his mother goes into his room. And my guess is, because I'm a mom, she just wants to see her son back in his room. Well, because of everything that he consumed that night, he had no idea what he was doing, who was around. He thought he was still back in Ireland, that somebody was breaking in. He grabbed a baseball bat, and he did beat her to death. Now, when he came to, during all of that was going on, he yelled for his father. They called 911. She was taken off in an ambulance. He was taken to the police department. Now, at the time that he's in the police department, he has no idea whether or not she had died. He ended up passing out again because of the amount that was in his system, and we got his blood from it, and he was close to a 0.3, if not around that time. They woke him up. They said, "We need your license." And he's like, "Oh, it's back in the hostel," because he's still out of it because of everything that happened. So those are the facts of what happened. What I did as the state's attorney is I met with her husband and her other son to talk to them about this. And they said, this is just a tragic accident. We don't want anything to happen to him. This is just the worst thing. But for a series of events, this would never have happened. I then met with her father and family members, and they're like, this is a tragic accident. They saw it for what it was. Now, he didn't get off scot-free. It was charged as second degree. Second degree is when a person intends to kill somebody, but in this particular case, they had an unreasonable belief of self-defense or that they needed to do it. Now, while factually it fitted, I believe it fit more for involuntary manslaughter. And involuntary manslaughter is when you unintentionally kill a person. So he pled guilty to that, which is a Class 2 felony. He was put on probation for 4 years. We gave him a lot of terms, which included no drugs, no alcohol. You're going to have random drug and alcohol testing. We put him through grief counseling, through other counseling. You have to have a job or you have to go to school. Because that's what fit factually that case, because nobody believes that he intentionally wanted to kill his mother. Now, he chose to become voluntarily intoxicated, and he had to pay the penalty as a result of it. But what he did was involuntary manslaughter, not first-degree murder, and I don't even believe that second-degree murder, because while it was an unreasonable belief that he had to defend himself from breaking in, it was more involuntary manslaughter. So he was held accountable for it. He's going to have a felony conviction, but more importantly, that kid has to live with the fact that he killed his mother, and he's going to live with that every day of his life. But I did that with the consent of the family members who were affected as a result of this.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I appreciate that explanation. That does explain things. But I have a third question, and I know maybe there's some other callers there. But okay, so this he pleaded voluntarily. He's got a felony on his record. This goes into voting because I've read about our current presidential candidate who has advocated that prisoners that have been convicted of a felony, that they should be allowed to vote. And that brings up the fact about illegal aliens, and there's been a lot of talk about, will they be allowed to vote? Are you going to be prosecuting if you discover any illegal aliens that are going to try to vote in King County?
Well, anytime a person commits a crime, I'm going to prosecute them. And right now, a person who is here illegally is not able to vote. So if something happens that there's a crime in Kane County, I will prosecute it. I do not support people who break the law.
Thanks for calling.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. All right, about 6 minutes left. I know that's something you wanted to talk about there, so we got that out, and appreciate the phone call. 847-931-1410. Also in the news here lately has been this whole issue going on outside the Kane County government building with the formation of this free speech zone that suddenly was talked about a lot over the past couple of weeks. And whether you had any involvement in that or not, this was where the Madam Chair, Corinne Pirog, decided, I guess without board approval, that she was going to restrict people to a certain area as far as where they passed out materials and whatnot. And those materials happened to be materials that were endorsing the candidate who's running against Corinne Pirog in this upcoming election. And in their minds, pointing out some negative things that she's done during her 4 years. So they kind of tie that into, how did you let this happen? Right. You have an explanation for this too, right?
I do. So a couple months ago when it first came up, my civil division was involved. And again, my civil division provides legal advice to our clients. And it was asked what could happen with this. And so my civil division gave advice, and that advice included the fact that free speech zones can be legal, but only if they're done in certain ways. We don't create policy, so we don't say you should do this or you shouldn't do it. All we do is we give legal advice. And that's basically what happened. It's like, it could be, but you'd have to go through all of this stuff with us before we can opine on whether or not it happens or doesn't happen. And then that issue was done. Then suddenly, it came up again without contacting me about it, without talking to my civil division, without saying, well, we want to do this way, we want to do it that way. Part of what we said was this has to be done by the county board, and it has to be done by resolution, because we also need to give notice to our constituents. They need to know that suddenly what they've been doing, they're now going to be put in this little boxed area. Had we been notified of all of this, we would have given the advice that it cannot be done in certain ways. It has to be done in these ways. And frankly, as the state's attorney, I get to say to my clients, I advocate against this. And I'm going to say it again. I don't believe we should have free speech zones. The individuals who are coming to the county board building were doing so respectfully. If they were causing an issue for safety or maybe blocking traffic and somebody said, hey, can you move over here? They did it. I'm horrified by the fact that I found out about this because of a citizen, Brian Anderson, who obviously is here. Not horrified that he called me, but that I had to find that out that way. And so when I got involved, I was able to get it shut down, and I was able to make sure that we weren't doing this in Kane County because people deserve their freedom of speech, even if it's against me. People say things about that they agree or disagree. That's their absolute right to do so.
Yeah, okay. So that was, I guess, what you're saying in a way is that was probably a mistake that was made.
Yes.
By Ms. Pirog for doing this without getting the entire Kane County Board involved and without looking into it further besides just making that decision on her own to do that.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And as far as Brian goes, and we talked about him a little bit off the air before we started this, he's with Kane County Speaks. He's got a show here every other week. And he's a guy who's gotten a lot more involved in Kane County board meetings, things of this nature, and you were saying you appreciate guys like him because he is bringing issues to the table that have largely gone unnoticed for the last few years when there's been kind of an apathy with the general public about what goes on in government, right?
Absolutely. I love when Brian comes to speak because he really does, he does his research, he looks at the issues, and he makes it known. And then he gets other people, and this is exactly what we should have in our government, because if we don't do it, then people are just going to do whatever it is that they want, and it's not what is right for Kane County.
8:54 or 8:56, we're down to 2 minutes already. So I guess with 2 minutes left, Jamie, any final words you want to say or about your term or what you want to do or just Kane County in general before we leave you today?
So I have absolutely loved being the state's attorney for the last 4 years. I mean, there's certainly some days when I sit there and I'm like, are you kidding me? I have to deal with another issue like this because it shouldn't happen that way. But I believe that I have come in and I have brought forth the criminal justice reform that we want and need in our community and every other community. And I've done this as a state's attorney. I haven't done it as a Democrat. And that's important to know because the moment that I put my state's attorney hat on, I do it as a person who wants to do things ethically and with justice for each individual case. I'm happy that that caller brought up the Campton Hills issue because the thing is, as the state's attorney, I look at every case individually. It sounds bad when you just go out there and you say, well, he beat his mother to death, and so she's probably doing that because he's a white kid from Campton Hills. Well, when you actually look at the facts, you can see why we did what we did, and that's what I will continue to bring for the next 4 years as the state's attorney, which is justice that is done right, and it's always done with public safety in mind. I would do this job happily for years and years because it really is the best way to impact our community. And people need to look locally more than we need to look federally at this point because local is where people are really going to be affected. And I've worked really hard to make sure that I've done it right. And when I've screwed up, I've admitted it and I've fixed everything that I've done because unlike other elected officials, I will admit when I do something wrong because that's just how I've been taught and how I've been raised. So if anybody wants to learn more about me, and my website is mosserforkanecounty.com. You can also look at the state's attorney's website because I have a significant amount of information on there, the press releases of what we've done, the statistics of what we've done. So I would ask for your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Columbia College of Missouri Elgin campus is intent in their commitment to open doors and support those who strive for excellence. Too many people have been made to feel that higher education isn't a place for them, that it is someone else's dream. But Columbia College of Missouri has changed all that. With individualized attention and ongoing support, Columbia College knows a future built by you is a future built for you. Columbia College of Missouri Elgin campus, your new starts now. Visit ccis.edu.
For a little lighthearted lawlessness on Sunday afternoons, listen to Handle on the Law from 4 to 7 p.m. Handle on the Law is a unique combination of useful legal advice and outrageous handle remarks. Whether you're talking about Big Brother, big business, big legal problems, or Big Macs, you'll rarely find Bill without an opinion. His rapid-fire commentary gives listeners the information they crave in the way they crave it. It's Handle on the Law, Sunday afternoons from 4 to 7 p.m. right here on WRMN, AM 1410 and 96.7 FM.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN, AM 1410, Elgin time, 9 o'clock.
With your 1410 WRMN News Flash, I'm Sean Kernan, brought to you by the U.S. Postal Service. In an effort to address the educational needs of Americans without a four-year college degree, Illinois is receiving an $8 million boost from the Apprenticeships Build America grants. The funding is part of a $244 million initiative by the U.S. Department of Labor. 57-year-old David R. Glass, facing severe legal repercussions after being charged with multiple felonies related to child pornography, the McHenry County Sheriff's Office, in collaboration with the Illinois Attorney General's Office, charging Glass with 10 counts of reproducing or selling child pornography and 10 counts of possession. Elgin is set to commemorate Patriot Day with a solemn remembrance ceremony September 11th at the Hemmons Cultural Center. The event is scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. and will feature the Elgin Fire Department, Elgin Police Department, and honored guests presenting flags. Participants will be treated to a rendition of the national anthem by Larkin High School students, heartfelt remarks from city officials, and representatives of the American Legion Post 57. With your 1410 WRMN News Flash, I'm Sean Kernan.
What's better than one win? 3 wins. With Straight Savings, you keep your own phone, get one line for only $25 a month with real unlimited data, and get rewarded with a $200 phone credit after 12 months. It's a win-win-win. Head to Walmart or visit straighttalk.com today. Switch to Straight Talk. Less dollars, more sense. Straight Savings Plan enrollment requires compatible unlocked device and new line of service. Bonus device credit requires 12 months of active service. Offer ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. Taxes and fees apply. For network management practices, see Straight Talk's terms and conditions.
Progressive presents Renter's MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Tom Kelly's carbon fiber mountain bike. Because more than riding his carbon fiber mountain bike, Tom loves telling people about his carbon fiber mountain bike. Friends, family, even a local barista knows about his carbon fiber mountain bike. And that's why Tom's carbon fiber mountain bike, if you haven't heard about it, is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
Here at WRMN Radio, we try to connect with the community and discuss important issues, like our current mental health crisis. Here's Lori Baker, President and CEO of AI